Erin, since we have not seen you in so long, you must get the first question. And it's about reproductive freedom because it seems to be a very strong issue for Vice President Harris. Iowa shows how important and urgent this issue still is. What can we expect?
Well, Stephanie, it is good to be with you at the 99-day mark. And what a time it is. I mean, look, within hours of that Iowa abortion ban taking effect, you saw Vice President Kamala Harris on X highlighting the new law, tying it directly to Trump, the Supreme Court that he ushered in, and their decision to end federal protections for abortion. Now, we know that Harris has been the lead voice for Democrats on this issue since the Supreme Court's 2022 decision, taking the fight directly to Trump. She was doing that as vice president, and now she's doing it as a presumptive Democratic nominee for president. So this is an issue that she has long owned, and she's using the Iowa ban, as you mentioned, to kick off the second week of her presidential bid, which is a week of action specifically focused on abortion rights in key states. I'm going to be in Atlanta to see her tomorrow talking about this issue, continuing to hammer the stakes of this issue, of this election around abortion. 6-week bans that leave women kind of scrambling for needed health care have been really galvanizing. We've seen that over the past couple of years. And it really is just a reminder that 2 years after the Dobbs decision, as we say at the 19th, abortion is very much on the ballot for voters in November, and the landscape is still unfolding at the state level.
McKay, a week of action following a week, whether you like Vice President Harris or not, you can't help but describe it as a week of super excitement. Based on what you have seen so far, do you think her team can make sure this initial buzz is more than just a honeymoon phase?
Well, that's going to be the challenge, right? I mean, look, there's bound to be a honeymoon phase after this. Although I will say that I think that the Harris campaign has done better than a lot of people expected in this scenario, right? I was in Milwaukee just a couple of weeks ago, and when I talked to Republican delegates there about this prospect of Joe Biden dropping out and kind of anointing Kamala Harris as the heir apparent, they all kind of were, salivating at that prospect. They thought that she would be so much easier to beat even than Joe Biden. I think if I were to check back with some of those delegates now, they might be singing a different tune. That said, look, the weeks ahead are going to be crucial. She's going to have to choose a running mate who continues to excite the Democratic base while also helping her to compete in those Midwestern battleground states where a lot of people think she's going to be most vulnerable. She's going to have to pull off a good convention. That's going to be where a lot of Americans have the opportunity to get to know her. And she's going to have to brace for some real incoming from the Trump campaign. If you talk to people in the Trump campaign, they will say we haven't gotten a chance yet to define her, which means that a lot of money is going to be going into attack ads in the coming weeks in these battleground states. How the campaign responds to that is going to be pretty crucial to whether she can continue this momentum.
They've had plenty of time to attack her. She's the vice president, and she was already on the ticket. Can I just push back on one tiny thing, McKay? Because I keep hearing, of course she had a honeymoon phase. You and I were both in Milwaukee. J.D. Vance didn't. People in Milwaukee weren't dumping on him, but I don't remember hearing anyone excited about him. Tucker Carlson got a much bigger response than J.D. Vance did in Milwaukee.
Well, and not just that. I mean, it does show the importance of good campaign tacticians helping you roll out your message, because J.D. Vance was introduced to the American public there at the convention. I think his speech was, somewhat lackluster. It seemed cobbled together. It didn't have a lot of soaring oratory. The days after the convention featured just one, gaffe after another as people brought up past clips of him saying, pretty extreme sounding things. And the campaign has not kind of deftly handled those things. And I think Kamala Harris gets a lot of the credit, and probably the lion's share of the credit for this rollout. But I think her campaign also deserves credit for how well they have handled the media, how well they have pushed her message out. You're right, it was not inevitable. And I think that they do deserve credit for how well they've done so far. But continuing the momentum is a different question.
All right, let's talk about a different excitement, Susan, because there is a ton for her potential running mate. According to NBC News, the short list for Harris's running mate has 7 names: 5 governors, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. And that list just got shorter because North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper withdrew his name from consideration. But just today, the governors that are still on the list, Josh Shapiro and Gretchen Whitmer, led a major rally in Pennsylvania. I want you to watch this.
Let's be clear. Kamala Harris has more experience than the Trump-Vance ticket combined. Between the two of those dudes, they only have 5.5 years, and it's not public service, it's self-service that they're in the business of.
Well, I don't know about you. I want a future that is cleaner and greener. I want a future with better schools and safer streets. And I want a future with more freedom, not less. And I want a future where I can look the 47th president of the United States in the eye and say, hello, Madam President. I hope you're with me. Let us get to work.
And those are just two of the strong candidates. We've seen Pete Buttigieg all over the air. Tim Walz of Minnesota has been all over TV in the last week, and people are falling in love with this guy. Susan, what do you make of this field? Because a lot of these names, people on the national level hadn't heard of even 2 weeks ago.
Well, first of all, you're totally right, Steph. This is like really underscoring for many Americans the deep bench that the Democrats have. Also, I got to say, right, it's fascinating. Where were the surrogate operation for Joe Biden? Was it a lack of enthusiasm for the former president? Was it that the campaign didn't want them out there for some reason? I do think it's one of those unintended benefits of this very late change in horses on the Democratic side, that you have this very public Veep stakes playing out. You have really dynamic new spokespeople emerging. I'm sure that on some level, the vice president would like to keep this going for a while, to have all these incredibly kind of sharp, savvy, articulate campaigners out there working for her and working for the Democratic ticket. This is actually quite beneficial, it seems to me. And to your point, I just want to really underscore how not inevitable the Harris honeymoon was. 10 days ago, there was a lot of anxiety among many of the Democrats that I spoke with, donors, senior former officials. They were concerned, in fact, that the narrative, even if Biden dropped out, was going to be a story about division and discord inside the Democratic Party, that it would perhaps underscore Vice President Harris and the struggles that she had, in particular at the beginning of her time in the administration. The fact that that has not happened, and that there have been these political benefits to the party, including having all of these very talented surrogates, these people could have challenged Harris for the nomination. Instead, they very rapidly endorsed her within a matter of hours after she became the presumptive heir of President Biden. And I just feel like this is a net plus for the Democratic Party. She's going to obviously have to choose in relatively quickly, but these seem like a pretty strong field of candidates for her to choose from among.
I'm going to move on, but I want to stay there for a second, Susan, because I was definitely talking to big donors 2 weeks ago. But before Kamala Harris was in the position that she's in, and I kept hearing over and over, well, it would be a clearer path for Democrats if Kamala Harris wasn't standing in the way, if she wasn't going to be the nominee. I heard that over and over, and I'm trying to call those sources back now, and they all either have egg on their face or they're forgetting that they said that, and they're like, who cares? Everybody's one party now. Were they underestimating what a strong candidate she is? And are you talking to any of those same people?
Yeah, no, of course. I was hearing the exact same thing, which is why I brought it up, Steph. I do think that it was not only not inevitable, but in fact, there was a lot of bracing for impact, if you will, of a Biden exit, even among people who were supportive of a Biden exit. And remember that for the last couple of years here in Washington, this was the kind of sub rosa conversation that you heard emanating, probably at least in part, from parts of Biden world, which is, well, Biden is best positioned to win. And, the unstated and sometimes explicitly stated thing was because if it's not him, it's going to be Harris, and we don't think she can win. And so there was a kind of a tearing down of her political skills. But going back to the beginning of this conversation, she's had 2 years. She's gotten better as a campaigner. There's no question all of her experience on the campaign trail, especially on the abortion rights issue in the wake of the Dobbs decision. The person I saw in the last week was a more skilled and just a more experienced national political campaigner, largely because she's basically nonstop been on the road campaigning for women's reproductive rights ever since that decision came down.